Welcome to the Global Discussion, a discussion with creatives, leaders, and thinkers. My name is Simon Hodgkins. Today, it is a real pleasure to be joined by Shel Israel. Shel, you're very welcome to the show. Let's begin by telling our audience a little bit about your journey, your background, your writing expertise. Tell us a little bit about the journey of Shel.
Should I go back to before I got paroled, or should I start there?
I'd start with after the parole, probably best.
Okay, actually, I'll begin at the beginning. I was raised in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, which is sort of like Ireland, in that at 5 o'clock at night, everywhere the bars open and get flooded by 5:05. Um, I am educated as a writer. I first decided to become a writer in second grade. The assignment had been to talk about my summer vacation, and I spent my summer vacation just hanging out and watching TV, and that didn't seem like it would fill up the page. So I told a really great story about my summer on a dude ranch in the Southwest. And the teacher looked at it and said, "You did this?" And I said, "Yes." And she made me stay after school for lying. That was my punishment. But at the end of my detention, she said, "You know, you really have this flair for writing, and you're really not good at anything else that I'm teaching. So my advice to you is stick with writing." And it was the only thing I really liked to do in second grade anyway, so I stuck with it. It's the one thing I feel good at. I spent, I think, 12 years as a journalist, 10 of them as a writer and 2 as an editor. And I hated being an editor. I just rewrote everybody because I knew I was a better writer. And now I have 40 years of writing. I've contributed to most major magazines, particularly Forbes, who changed ownership and reduced my fee by 75%. So I left Forbes. And of course, Forbes stayed solvent and their competitors did not. But now I ghostwrite, rewrite, and edit books, speeches, notes to the milkman for additional quarts, and whatever else I can get compensated in doing. So,
Very good. Well, thanks for sharing the
do
journey,
we still
Shel.
have any time left, or did I go?
Very good. No, it's great to hear that because I know a lot of people in the tech sector may know you as well because you wrote an awful lot of articles. You've also been involved in helping a lot of startups, and of course, a lot of those are in the tech space. I met you in person when you visited Dublin, Ireland with Robert Scoble, when you launched the book, The Age of Context, which was ahead of its time in its day. We're going back a number of years now, Shel. But you've basically, if it's been a hot topic, you've pretty much put the pen to paper about it, and very well respected as a writer. Let's go back though. Let's talk a little bit about that sort of inspiration you had earlier on. But what is it about today that you still love about writing? Because you're still writing 40 years down the road. Well, you must love it. What drives you to write?
50 years down the road. Uh, eh, I know I only look like I'm 32, but in fact, I'm older than dirt. Um, I love getting people to tell me their stories, including their nightmares and their dreams. And I do my very best to capture who they are and what I say about them as a writer. Um, I try not to be a cheerleader, and I don't want to, if I really hate what someone has to say, unless they're somebody like on the level of Donald Trump, I don't feel compelled to say this guy's a liar and an idiot. I may ask questions which allows the person I'm talking to reveal that they're an idiot, which has happened more than once. But everything I do is an attempt to tell my reader and audience tell my readers something that's either useful or interesting to them.
Yeah, and there's a particular skill and a craft in being able to do that in an articulate, intelligent manner. And we have to talk about AI, Shell. Everybody's talking about it. What's your take on the AI impact on writers today? You mentioned earlier Forbes, when they went through, as a lot of print publications went through times of cutting costs, and that had a direct impact on you. And we're seeing that to some degree now with AI. I'm very interested in your view, because you've seen lots of different angles on the writing industry.
I made a career um, of identifying the next big thing. And before my well-publicized and unpleasant divorce with Robert Scoble, um, he had incredible radar for what was coming down the line. And I'm grateful that I trusted his vision to write 3 books with him, that of the 6 books I wrote are first, second, and third in popularity. Something to do with the guy's name, I guess. So I have always looked, I've always been good on my own at spotting early trends. The first was I thought that in my field of then PR, computers might be useful. And everybody else said, what a waste of time. They cost a lot of money. What are you going to do? Spreadsheets all day long? But I knew that there was something happening that was, for better or worse, going to be transformative. And since then, as a writer, I've tried to make a career out of spotting new next big things that were not a fad, but would be enduring and would change the way we work, play, and communicate. AI will be the last one I face. I know I only look 29, but I am of advancing years, and I don't really expect to see what the ultimate outcome is. With computers, I remember people tell me the silliness when I said they would become a commodity, everybody would have one, they'd become more useful and more in use than typewriters. And a lot of people sneered and chuckled and had fun writing about the exaggerations of a former PR guy returning to writing. AI is infinitely bigger than that. AI fundamentally changes our relationships with technology. It is going to blur the line between who is real and who appears to be real. And it will be good enough to deceive most of us most of the time. This can be really, really scary. But I think what's going to happen is pretty much like the internet or blogging or everything else. It starts off really fascinating. And then there are those that say, yeah, that's good enough, but how do we make a buck out of this? And somebody in the room may say, but the ethics of it, and they're the first to leave the room for good. The profits of it, they're the ones that get promoted. That isn't a bad thing. That's how capitalism is supposed to work, and it does. The side effects of it are really scary. Identities can really be stolen. What we say can be abused. Bots are not quite there, but will get there so that they can look like you and me. And bots imitating you and me could be having this very conversation that you and I are having. That's disturbing. I don't think I'm going to be around long enough to see the result of it. But based on history, things that start out very good end up causing very big problems. And will continue to do so, except the problems seem to be getting bigger in what they can do. Where does it all end up? I don't know, because somewhere around there's a really bright kid who is going to go beyond our wildest imaginations. And whether he or she does that for better or worse remains to be seen. There's a line from a play that nobody remembers. It was a movie too, called Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, where she repeats the line, to George, truth and illusion, George, you don't know the difference. And that's what's going to happen to most of us. We aren't going to be able to tell whether you are real or not. As a matter of fact, I'm doing all this on the assumption you are real. If you are not, you are not required by law to inform me that you are a bot.
And isn't that the key crux of the future? That if you think it's real, it may as well be, but then there's the whole manipulative side of that. And that's when that ethics comes back into the room, I suppose, because what you can do with this technology in a short few years from now is going to be staggeringly good. I mean, it's good now, but it's going to be incredible if you think about the next even 5 years.
Uh, an old Irish guy who you might have heard of by the name of George Bernard Shaw once said, ethics are what you do when no one is looking.
100%,
Still
100%.
is, and he said that
Yeah,
a long time ago.
yeah.
Ethics are, if you do something that fools people and you make $1 million, it was really good for your family and you. You got to see parts of the world, you got to dress nicer, lived in a better home based on deceits that fooled others, and that's their problem. That's one way of looking at it. You know, what is right and what is wrong is a matter of personal values. And I like to think I have high standards, but maybe that's because I've been a public figure and I like to tell everybody I have high standards. So everything has an enigma to it. Not everything, but most things have an enigma attached to it. Right now, I'm well aware that you and I are having a personal conversation. We have this illusion of eye-to-eye conversation, but we're both aware that theoretically thousands of people are going to watch this. And so we're performing, we cannot help but perform. And with AI, we're going to be able to perform in a way that is more illusionary and deceptive than ever before. This is not always a bad thing if you're trying to teach kids about the Battle of Hastings. But it is a bad thing if you're doing it for personal gain and not for public gain, and you're doing it in a public venue. This is a dreamland for con artists.
Yeah, absolutely. And with all new advancements, there's always a health warning, right? There's always a sticker that you got to proceed with caution. It is a great opportunity, but there's two sides to every story. So
Every
100%.
technology innovation has a yes, but connected to it.
I like that. Yeah. Yes, but yeah, 100%, Shell. So let's talk a little bit then about the writing today, because over 5 decades, you've written a lot of stuff. So when it comes to training your future virtual persona, we've got lots of material to go back on. But writing today, I know you work with executives. You mentioned at the start you co-write books, you work on presentations, you work mostly in the tech sector. But what do you enjoy doing today? Like if you said, look, I really like doing this type of work, what makes you smile? What makes you get out of bed in the morning? What's the type of writing that you really resonate with, that you like doing?
No one's asked me that before. Um, I'm still doing technology, but I'm starting to emerge elsewhere, or where the technology is but a part of a story. I'm currently editing a book that explains how venture investors can get really, really rich by putting their money in companies that will decarbonize the atmosphere and thus save the world. He allowed me to insert just one line into the introduction, and that was, you can really get filthy rich by doing well, by doing good. And he loved the line, and we use it thematically throughout the book. What I love is collaborating with someone who is open to ideas of how to tell the story better. I take the focus from what is good for the author and convince the author to write what is good for the reader. And that doesn't mean they have to admit that they took from petty cash when they were an office boy or something, but it means that the book is a gift to help. And the side effect is you will make some money and you might get some cool speaking engagements, which are more lucrative than selling books. So the second thing is I need to be able to tell one of my selling points is taking the complex and simplifying it. And I need, as I write and get compensated by the author, to make my customer the reader. And I need to convince my author to speak and address issues in a way that are a benefit to the reader for reasons other than you should hire me. And I really get motivated by the authors who say, that's great, that's great. I know it can be said better, help me. As opposed to somebody saying, this is really quite good, and all I want you to do is know where to put the semicolons in versus the commas, which I can do. It's a living, it pays rent, but I don't have to curb my enthusiasm to do it.
I really like that, Shel, and thanks for sharing that insight. And I'm glad I asked you something that maybe you haven't been asked before or asked in a while, because I think that passion, that spark, that thing that we really like is it's really important in life, isn't it? That you get to do the things that give you that bit of joy and that spark and that interest you.
I also love the people I speak to who are too modest or unsure of themselves to say their intent on changing the world. And then I convince them to write a book about how they want to change the world. You can't change the world without telling the world what you're doing. It won't work.
100%, 100%. I couldn't agree more. As you look forward, then obviously you're in the midst of writing that book and helping with that book at the moment. And that's a big topic in itself. I mean, that touches everything. That touches the whole planet. It touches all of us. It touches future generations and technology. But when you think about what you do after that, what the next 6 months, the next 12 months look like, how do you plan at this stage of your career? What do you think about? What's on your horizon? What's on the roadmap? What are you hoping to achieve? What keeps you up at night? That kind of thinking. How does that planning work in your world at the moment, Shel?
Well, I have a new competitor in the form of generative AI. And I use it as a tool so I can write my projects faster and maintain my particularly human eloquence. But I have an AI competitor, and my business has diminished from it. My fees have been reduced because of it. And, for a while I was using the slogan, a real human for when good enough isn't good enough. But too many people said it's good enough, so I dropped it. There's a real challenge for professional writers right now. And one of the things we must do is figure out how to use AI better and faster and more effectively than our clients would without us. That's what I'm trying to do. And I think I'm doing it, but not always.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's really good insight. And of course, the technology industry has always been a fire hose. There's always something next coming down the road. So it's always changing. You got to keep on top of it. And to get ahead of it sometimes is tricky, right?
Well, you can't get ahead of the technology because the technology is, I can't get ahead of the technology because new technology that's going to change things is the thing I usually write about. I now write about other things because my market has shrunk and I need to keep working. But this is what I love to do. And I love to get somebody who, when I speak to, just is out of control with the vision and the dreams. And I can say, now hold on there, sidekick. Let's just figure out how to tell the story one bite at a time so that our readers feel like they've had a good meal when they're done reading your book. Let's just calm down and figure out what we have and what will soon happen and what may happen someday when we're both food for worms. And I've used that line enough times that it's hard for me to sound like I'm originally speaking when I say it, but it is what I do. It's I simplify really complex things so that the dumbest person who matters can read it on one try and understand what you're talking about, and the smartest person doesn't feel like you've dumbed it down. And that's a challenge that I think I'm pretty good at meeting. Some of the reviewers might have disagreed with me, but overall, my work has been well received.
Oh, it certainly has been well received. And before we run out of time, Shell, I have two last questions for you. The first one is there anything that we haven't touched on today, or maybe some aspect of what we have talked about today that you'd like to expand on? So anything you'd like to leave our worldwide audience with, just the final thoughts from you about our discussion, or maybe something new. And the second question that I would like you to answer as well is if people want to reach out to you and find out about these tremendous, exceptional writing services that you have, or all the other things that you're involved in, where's the best place to send people to, Shell?
An operator is standing by. There are many ways of reaching me. The simplest is you can email me. I still read email several times a day at Shel with one L, SHEL, at shelisrael.com. You can text me. Nah, I don't want to I don't want to post my phone number. You can follow me on LinkedIn and message me there. You can also use Facebook, but most of my business inquiries come in through LinkedIn.
And then
Yep.
what about any final thoughts for us before we wrap up today, Shell?
Everybody looks at new technology as a for better or worse situation, and it always should be, almost always should be a better and worse. Example, blogging changed so much for the better. In the early days, I still, I think professionally, early blogging from 1998 to about 2008 was world changing to me. I got to have personal conversations with people in more than a dozen countries. I got to meet individuals who could impact me more than institutions could. It personalized me with people all over the world. And then it started showing commercial value. And then it started moving from this. Well, Dell is a great example. They had the greatest social media stuff going. I still am friends with some of the people I met during that. They were my favorite company. Michael Dell was so into this. He protected his bloggers from the marketing department. At Ford, we had Scott Monty, who reported to the CEO, and to the anger of the marketing department, but blogging was not measurable And as it grew in importance and expense, it had to be assigned somewhere. And that had to be marketing. There's nowhere else in a traditional corporate structure for it to go. And once it went into marketing, it had to be measurable. And they had to measure revenue, which there wasn't, or eyeballs. And that meant they had to write not that which is true, not that which can make you do better, but that which was popular. Then one corporate blog started looking like another corporate blog, and they both thought they were using language that they invented, which shows the limits of their reading. And the funny thing is, I started to leave journalism a long time ago because of marketing, and you could use social media to develop relationships with people. And to me, that was essential to marketing. Today, they use the same technology to generate more eyeballs because it's measurable. And I don't think that this was done evilly or wrongly. I just think it lessens the value of an individual representing a corporation and talking about their experience. You mentioned my former co-author, Robert Scoble. Well, I think he really soared into fame when he was Microsoft's leading blogger. And one day he wrote that some days he has Mac envy while working for Mac at the time, Apple's greatest competitor. And I was sure he was going to get fired, but the comment was so popular and generated so much interest that it became more influential at Microsoft. And that was truly a phenomenal story. It played for other people. There was Richard Binhammer at Dell. There was Scott Monty at Ford, those people. And they became luminaries for a while until marketing needed to fold them in. And then when marketing folded them in, they needed to have measurable response and retention and all this crap. And so blogging's still nice, but it isn't revolutionary as it was. And it isn't personal like it was. It's just another quiver in the marketing among the marketing arrows.
I love it, Shel. I mean, it's great just hearing that, and it's food for thought. Things change, and it really is nice to hear that sort of final thoughts and your view on that. From somebody who takes a passion and a pride in writing things that move humans, that connect with humans. I think that's really important. So thank you for sharing that. I do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me in this interview. You've asked some really good questions. Most of them I haven't been asked to answer before, and I like that. I'm muttering, so I'll just say thank you very much and stop talking.
Well, you're very kind, Shel. Look, that brings us nicely to the end of this episode of the Global Discussion. I want to thank everybody who's watching or listening to this episode. And I want to make sure that they like, follow, subscribe, do everything that we need you to do to help support this show. And of course, contact Shel, get in touch with him on LinkedIn, drop him an email, and get in touch with all the great writing and things that he does. Shel.
I have an add-on. If you're thinking of writing a book, I will give you 1 free hour of consultation. I've been doing this for years, and it really helps me understand what's on the mind of somebody writing a book. So if you even just have an idea that you want to run by somebody who's been around the block so many times, the damn thing is oval. I'm available to do that either by Zoom or just by email conversations.
Well, thank you for adding that on. That's a terrific add-on for people who are watching and listening to this episode. So thank you, Shel. And that brings us to the end. Hopefully, people will join me back here for more discussions with creatives, leaders, and thinkers just like Shel. Shel, it's been a pleasure and an honor to talk to you again today.
Thanks for having me. I had a lot of fun. Bye.